So today, we're talking about a company that didn't just join an industry, you could say it built the industry. I'm talking about OpenSea, of course, the name that pretty much became the dictionary definition of an NFT marketplace.
But to really get why OpenSea was such a big deal, you have to ask yourself a simple question. Let's rewind the clock to, say, before 2018. Imagine you're a digital artist. How in the world do you sell a one-of-a-kind piece of your art? Well, the short answer is, you pretty much couldn't. Not easily anyway. It was the absolute Wild West. I mean, you practically needed a computer science degree just to interact with the smart contract. Every single NFT project was its own little island, with its own little marketplace. There was no way to know what anything was worth. And get this, the idea of a creator earning a royalty every time their art was resold? That was just a dream. It didn't exist.
All right, so let's take a closer look at what that chaotic, fragmented world was actually like. Because once you see the problem up close, you'll really appreciate just how brilliant the solution was.
And then, right into the middle of all that mess, came OpenSea. You know, someone once called it the eBay and Sotheby's of digital goods, and that's just a perfect description. It had that accessible, anyone-can-sell vibe of eBay, but also handled the super high-end auction house feel of a Sotheby's.
So, what exactly did they build? What was this big solution?
It was all about organizing that chaos. First, they created one single place, a unified market for all NFTs. No more island hopping. Then they made the user experience so simple that anyone, not just developers, could jump in. And this is huge. They pioneered and actually enforced creator royalties on those secondary sales. For the first time, artists had a real way to make a living. And the best part? It was non-custodial. That means you and only you ever held the keys to your assets.
Okay, and one of their most genius moves was something called lazy minting. Now before this, artists had to pay a fee, a gas fee, just to put their art up for sale. That's a huge barrier, right? Well, lazy minting completely flipped that. It basically said, don't worry about minting the NFT until someone actually buys it. The fee gets paid by the buyer when the first sale happens. This was a total game changer. It took all the financial risk off the creators and just opened the floodgates for creativity.
So what was the result of all this? Just complete and utter dominance. At its absolute peak back in January 2022, OpenSea was handling $5 billion in trades. Let that sink in. $5 billion in 1 month. They weren't just leading the market. For all intents and purposes, they were the market.
But you know how it goes in Web3. Things move at lightning speed, and no king sits on the throne for long. A new challenger was waiting in the wings, one that was built specifically to attack OpenSea right where it was weakest.
And that brings us to the next chapter. The king is challenged.
That challenger's name was Blur, and their strategy was the total opposite of OpenSea's. See, OpenSea was for everyone, the casual collector, the artist. Blur, they went straight for the pros, the high-frequency traders. And their approach was, honestly, ruthless. Zero fees, optional creator royalties, which was a huge deal, and an interface that looked more like a Bloomberg terminal than an art gallery.
And the effect? It was instantaneous and absolutely brutal. Blur launched this massive token airdrop that basically paid people to trade, and overnight, poof, they grabbed over 80% of the market share. Just like that, the king was on the ropes.
So what do you do when you're facing a threat like that? You could try to compete head-on, or you could evolve. OpenSea chose to evolve. This is the story of its comeback.
Their answer was basically OpenSea 2.0. The new plan wasn't just to be a marketplace anymore. The vision was much bigger, to become a kind of Web3 super app.
The whole strategy was something they called rebundling. Think about it. Before, you had to use one app to swap your tokens, another app to bridge them to a different chain, and then finally go to OpenSea to buy something. The OpenSea 2.0 idea was simple. Let's put all of that into one single, smooth experience.
So what did that actually look like? Well, it meant things like being able to swap your tokens right there on the site. It meant you could buy an NFT on one blockchain using crypto you had on a totally different one. It meant they would pull in listings from all over the web to make sure you got the best price. And yep, in a direct shot at Blur, they launched their own reward system, teasing a future token.
So after defending their turf and stabilizing the ship, OpenSea started looking ahead, and their ambition grew way, way beyond just JPEGs. They set their sights on a whole new frontier, Wall Street.
And you can see this shift perfectly in this quote from their CEO, Devin Finzer. He says they're evolving from just an NFT marketplace into a platform for trading all kinds of digital assets. That's a huge shift in thinking.
And just how big is that shift? Well, we're talking about moving from NFTs as we know them, digital art, collectibles, gaming items, to NFTs as real-world assets. We're talking about things like the deed to a house, a stock certificate, a stake in a company, all living as a token on the blockchain.
And this isn't some far-off fantasy. I mean, you've got giants like BlackRock, the biggest asset manager in the world, already tokenizing their funds. And once those assets are on a blockchain, they're going to need a place to be bought and sold. A liquid, trusted market. See where this is going? OpenSea wants to be that place. But this whole ambition brings up a massive, fundamental question. You've got the crypto world, which is all about being open, permissionless, sometimes anonymous, and then you have Wall Street, which is the exact opposite. Highly regulated, permissioned, you need to know who everyone is. So how do you get those two worlds to work together? Figuring out how to blend crypto's wild freedom with Wall Street's rules, that's not just the next big test for OpenSea, it's really the defining challenge for the entire future of finance.